Welcome back. The details. President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi is participating on Sunday in the 5th semi-annual coordination meeting of the African Union and African communities held in the Kenyan capital, Nairobi. Details.
President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi headed to Nairobi, Kenya's capital, to participate in the 5th mid-year coordination meeting of the African Union, regional economic communities and regional mechanisms in Kenya. Presidential spokesperson Councillor Ahmed Fahmy said the African Coordination Summit was established in 2019 under the Egyptian presidency of the African Union in connection with efforts of the institutional reform of the Union, and within the framework of dividing missions between the AU Commission and the regional economic blocs, as well as boosting regional integration, particularly of what concerns economic integration, which is considered the focal point of launching the Continental Free Trade Area, in addition to strengthening the path of regional and integration among the countries of the continent. Spokesperson stated that the president is scheduled to deliver a speech to review Egypt's ambitions and roadmap as the current chair of the Steering Committee of Heads of State and Government of the African Development Agency, NEPAD, for the next 2 years. President el-Sisi also delivered a speech in his capacity as the current president of the United Nations Climate Conference before the Environment and Climate Change session to tackle Egyptian efforts in the face of the effects of climate change on the countries of the African continent. It's expected that President el-Sisi also hold talks with his Kenyan counterpart, William Ruto, to discuss mechanisms for enhancing aspects of bilateral cooperation and deal with the African mutual concerns, as well as boost means of cooperation to crystallize the frameworks of African common work with the aim of pushing forward the wheel of development and inclusion in the continent.
The leaders and prime ministers of the African Union member states and major African economic blocs are due to meet in Kenya's capital, Nairobi, on Sunday to discuss means of speeding up carrying out the African Trade-Free Zone, at which work started in 2019. The African Trade-Free Zone composes 55 African countries in its membership. The opening session of the 5th mid-year coordination meeting of the African Union and economic blocs in Nairobi will include speeches of the President of African Commission Musa Faqih Mohammed, Presidents of Kenya and Comoros, that's current President of the African Union. The session will tackle means of trade integration among African continent and speeding up finishing African Trade-Free Zone. After the opening session, a closed session will be held to tackle the current situation of the continental integration, followed by a session entitled Environment, Climate Change and Blue Economy Challenges and Opportunities of African Integration, then followed by a session on African mediation to end the Russian-Ukrainian war. The 5th mid-year coordination meeting of the African Union and economic blocs will also include a session on the initiative of African Development Bank. President of Comoros, the current president of the EU, Ghazali Othmani, will address the concluding session to announce the final recommendations of the coordination meeting.